The Galactic Unity Ball was the most magnificent event Eli had ever seen. The grand hall stretched endlessly, glowing with soft lights that shimmered in colors no human had names for. Beings from hundreds of different worlds filled the space, their forms strange and beautiful. Some had wings of silver, some had bodies that reflected light like crystals, and some were shapes that seemed impossible yet moved with grace. Music floated in the air, an alien melody that Eli felt in his chest as much as he heard with his ears. Eli stood at the edge of the hall, hands clasped behind his back. He wore a simple black suit, borrowed from the ship's captain, and polished shoes that felt tight and strange on his feet. He had been sent as part of the human delegation, but not as an ambassador or diplomat. He was a mechanic, someone who fixed engines and wires, someone who knew more about thrumming circuits than politics or etiquette. And now, surrounded by creatures who glowed, floated, or shimmered, Eli felt painfully small. As the first song began, everyone seemed to know exactly what to do. Pairs formed naturally. Elegant beings choosing partners with a glance, a gesture, or a word. Their movements were perfect, flowing with the music as though it had been written for them alone. Couples twirled in the center of the hall, laughter ringing out, soft lights reflecting off wings, scales, and metallic skins. Eli watched them, hands tightening around his glass, pretending to be busy with the reflection of lights, but his heart ached. He had expected this loneliness, perhaps, but it still hurt. On Earth, he had been used to being invisible, but here on a stage of stars and alien elegance, being invisible felt almost cruel. Every laugh and glance seemed to remind him, "You don't belong here." He turned, intending to walk quietly out of the hall, to find some shadowed corner where he could watch without being noticed. But then the music shifted. A new melody began, slower and richer, full of notes that seemed to hum in the chest like fire. The lights dimmed slightly and a hush fell over the crowd. Eli didn't understand why, but the sound made his breath catch. He turned back toward the center of the hall, and then he saw her. She was unlike any being he had ever encountered. Taller than him, her presence was commanding yet soft, frightening yet graceful. Her skin was pale, almost silver, catching the dim lights like frost. Her hair floated around her shoulders like liquid shadow. Most striking of all were her eyes, glowing faintly red, calm and intelligent, scanning the room until they landed on him. The crowd seemed to sense something different. Whispers moved through the room like a soft wind. "A Verithian," someone said. "The blood-born." Eli didn't know what that meant, but he sensed the fear behind it. The Verithians were legends whispered about across galaxies, known to be dangerous, feared, and untouchable. And yet she was walking straight toward him. Eli's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to disappear. But he couldn't. He was rooted to the spot, unable to look away as she approached. She stopped just a few steps from him, tilting her head slightly. The red glow of her eyes softened as she spoke, her voice calm and melodic, almost hypnotic. "Human," she said, and her words carried weight across the hall, making the whispers pause. "Will you dance with me?" Eli's heart stuttered. Me?" he stammered, unsure he had heard correctly. "Yes," she said simply. "You." Time seemed to stretch. Everyone else in the hall faded from his vision. There was only her, and the quiet pull of something he didn't understand yet. Something lonely. Something familiar in her gaze that mirrored the loneliness he carried every day. He swallowed hard. Fear battled curiosity. Pride battled desire. And then, slowly, almost instinctively, he nodded. "All right," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'll dance." The Verithian's lips curved into the faintest smile. And as she extended her hand toward him, the entire hall seemed to pause, holding its breath. In that moment, Eli realized that this one choice, this one step forward, could change everything. Eli hesitated for a moment, staring at the hand extended toward him. Her skin was cold, like silver moonlight, but it wasn't unpleasant. It was alive, vibrant, and somehow comforting. The murmurs of the crowd faded into the background, leaving only her presence and the quiet thrum of music vibrating through the hall. She waited patiently, her glowing red eyes never leaving his. "You don't need to be afraid," she said softly. Her voice was smooth, like silk brushing against metal. "I won't harm you." Eli shook his head, trying to find words. "But you're a Verithian," he said, voice trembling slightly. The words felt heavy on his tongue, like speaking aloud might break something fragile. The Verithians were feared across the galaxy. They were whispered about in stories told to children. Elegant predators who could see through lies, who fed on the essence of life itself. Humans were supposed to stay far away, and yet here she was asking him to dance. Yes, she replied calmly. I am a Verithian. And yes, you are human, but that does not mean we cannot share this moment. Her lips curved slightly in a smile that felt more human than alien. It was both sad and hopeful, and for a moment Eli felt a strange warmth in his chest. He looked around the hall. Eyes were on them, some wide with shock, others with curiosity. A few whispered, but no one dared approach. Eli realized that for the first time in a long while, he didn't care what anyone thought. He looked back at her and took a deep breath. All right, he said. I'll dance with you. Her smile widened just a little, enough to make her seem less like a legend and more like someone who wanted something simple, like companionship. She held out her hand again, and this time Eli accepted it. As soon as his fingers brushed hers, a faint tingle ran through him. It wasn't painful. It was like the quiet energy of life itself, warm and alive. The music shifted, slow and haunting, and she led him to the center of the hall. He stumbled slightly on the polished floor, but she adjusted easily, guiding him with a gentle strength. Her movements were perfect, fluid, mesmerizing. Every step she took seemed intentional, as though the music flowed through her veins. Eli did his best to follow, though he felt clumsy beside her grace. You dance well, he said nervously, trying to hide his awe. She tilted her head, a small laugh escaping her lips. You are polite, that is rare. Her laugh was soft, almost musical, and Eli felt the tension in his chest ease just a little. They moved together through the rhythm, and for a few moments Eli forgot everything else. The fear, the whispers, the isolation he always carried. There was only the music, only her hand in his, only the strange, comforting pull of connection. You're not afraid? She asked softly, her eyes glowing brighter. I should be, he admitted with a nervous chuckle. But you don't seem like the monsters they say you are. She looked at him then, really looked, and for a moment her expression softened entirely. We are what others make us out to be, she said quietly. But we are not always what they say. Eli swallowed hard. Something in her words struck a chord deep within him. He realized he understood loneliness in a way she did. Different species, different worlds, yet the same ache of being unseen, misunderstood. The music slowed, and for the first time, Eli noticed the small details. The slight shimmer in her hair, the faint glow of her skin, the way her eyes seemed to study him without judgment, only curiosity. She was dangerous by legend, but here she was, vulnerable in her own way, offering trust. When the song ended, Eli felt a strange reluctance to let go. He realized that even though they were worlds apart, even though she was feared and he was small and insignificant, he felt seen, truly seen for the first time in his life. And the Verithian woman, Virel, as he would later learn her name, stood there waiting, her hand still extended, offering something more than a dance, something human. After the dance, Eli's heart was still racing. His palms tingled from holding her hand, and the warmth of her presence lingered in a way he couldn't explain. The crowd had returned to their conversations, their whispers, but for Eli, everything else had faded. There was only her, Virel, and the quiet memory of the music that had carried them together. She led him gently to the edge of the hall, away from the prying eyes and murmurs. For a moment they stood in silence. Her red eyes, soft and glowing, studied him as though she wanted to memorize everything about him in one look. Eli felt exposed yet strangely safe. He had never met anyone who could make him feel both small and important at the same time. You are different from the others, Virel said softly. Her voice carried a hint of curiosity, a flicker of something vulnerable hidden beneath her elegance. Most humans avoid me. They fear my kind before they even see me. Eli shook his head. I was afraid at first, he admitted. But when you asked me to dance, I don't know. I felt like maybe you weren't what everyone said you were. He laughed nervously. I felt human. She tilted her head, her smile faint but genuine. You made me feel the same way. Her words hung in the air, fragile and honest. For centuries, she had known only fear and distance. To be seen not as a monster, but as someone capable of feeling. It was rare, almost impossible. Around them, the hall continued to shine and shimmer, but Eli barely noticed. He couldn't stop. looking at her. Every detail was mesmerizing. The pale silver of her skin, the soft curve of her shoulders, the way her hair fell like liquid shadow. But it wasn't just her beauty that drew him. It was the loneliness behind it, the quiet longing that mirrored his own. "I never thought anyone would choose me," he said quietly. "Not at a place like this. Not someone like you." Varel's eyes softened further. "And yet you did. You saw me." The weight of her words settled in Eli's chest. To be seen, that simple human need had guided him to this moment. And he realized that, in a galaxy filled with impossible beings and endless wars, the most extraordinary thing was connection. They began walking along the balcony, the twin moons casting pale light over them. She kept a careful distance, but her hand occasionally brushed his, deliberate and electric. Every touch sent a ripple through him, warming the cold fear that had lived in him since he arrived. "I've lived centuries," she said quietly, as though speaking to herself. "I've walked among stars, and yet I have never danced like that before. Never with anyone who made me feel alive." Eli's heart ached. "Then maybe we were meant to meet," he said softly. "Maybe the universe made a mistake letting a human be afraid of a Verithian because maybe we need each other more than we know." Her eyes glistened, and for a moment she looked almost fragile. It was strange to see someone so powerful appear so delicate, but Eli understood it. He had felt fragile in his own way, invisible and unimportant. Yet here they were, two lonely souls finding each other in the midst of a galaxy that didn't understand them. They stopped at the edge of the balcony, looking out over the city of lights below. Eli could feel the quiet hum of life in Varel, a rhythm like a heartbeat, faint but steady. And for the first time he realized that she wasn't just a being of legend or fear. She was someone capable of emotion, of hope, of longing. "I want to know you," he whispered. "Not just the Varel everyone fears, the real you." She smiled, a soft, almost shy curve of her lips. "Then you must be ready," she said, her red eyes glimmering with a secret. "To see everything I am, even the parts I hide." Eli nodded. "I am." And in that quiet, suspended moment, something changed. Fear was still there, whispers still lingered, but it no longer mattered. Between a human and an alien vampire, a fragile connection had formed. One neither of them could deny, one that would shape everything to come. For the first time, Eli felt that maybe he belonged somewhere, not because of status or strength, but because someone, somewhere, had chosen him. After their dance, the whispers began. Eli hadn't noticed them at first, caught in the glow of Varel's presence. But as he stood near the edge of the hall, he could hear the cautious, hushed voices weaving through the crowd. "Did you see that? The human, with a Verithian. They say their kind drinks life itself. She will drain him. He doesn't know what he's doing." Eli felt a cold wave of fear run through him, but he refused to step back. He glanced at Varel, who remained calm, almost regal, as if the opinions of hundreds of beings were nothing to her. Yet for the first time he noticed a shadow cross her face, a flicker of uncertainty, of worry. He reached out, gently touching her hand. "They don't understand you," he said softly. "But I do." Varel looked at him, and in that gaze Eli could see centuries of isolation, of being feared and avoided. She had lived for hundreds of years, yet here she was, vulnerable before a human, standing on a trembling line between power and fear. "You're brave," she whispered, her red eyes glimmering. Humans rarely stand against fear so calmly. Eli shrugged, trying to seem casual, but his heart was racing. "I didn't stand against fear, I just didn't run from you." Her lips curved slightly in the faintest of smiles. She had learned to read fear and intention over centuries, yet this human's simplicity, his honesty, confused her in the best way. He was not impressed or horrified by her legend. He simply accepted her, and that acceptance, so small in action, was enormous in meaning. As the night continued, a few of the more daring observers approached. Their faces were painted with caution and curiosity. "Varel," one said, voice low, "you are seen dancing with a human. Do you not understand the risk? They are fragile, mortal, and unprepared for what you are." Eli felt a flicker of anger. "I am not fragile," he said firmly, stepping closer, "and she is not a monster. You all judge without understanding." The beings paused, startled by the human's courage. Some frowned, muttered, then stepped back, unwilling to challenge him further. It was not strength in the traditional sense that impressed them, but the quiet defiance of a small human refusing to be intimidated by centuries of fear. Virel's eyes softened. She had been watched, feared, and whispered about for so long that she had begun to believe the stories herself. But now, with Eli standing beside her, she felt something she hadn't in centuries. Hope. Not the fragile hope of a fleeting gesture, but a steady, growing certainty that connection could exist even across worlds. Later, she found herself leaning on the balcony, away from the crowd, looking down at the galaxy of lights below. The city stretched out like a river of stars, each one a reminder of the lives she had passed by, the friendships never made, the trust never earned. You don't belong to their fear, Eli said, joining her quietly. You belong to yourself and to whoever sees you for who you are. She turned to him, eyes glimmering. And you? You see me? I do, he said firmly. Not the stories, not the legends. You, the real you. A soft wind stirred around them, carrying the faint scent of alien blossoms and the pulse of distant stars. For a long moment, they simply stood there, hand in hand, two lonely beings finding comfort in a fleeting connection. Eli realized that fear had been a part of every step he had taken in this galaxy. The fear of being alone, of being small, of being invisible. But standing here with Virel, he understood something crucial. Bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it, to trust even when everyone else whispered warnings. And Virel, centuries old and powerful, had learned something too. That night, among whispers and suspicion, she discovered that even a legend could be touched by gentleness, that even a feared Verithian could be seen as more than a story. As they watched the twin moons rise over the city, Eli felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. He wouldn't let the galaxy's fear come between them. For the first time, he knew that connection. True, human connection was more powerful than any legend, stronger than any prejudice. And in that quiet, shared understanding, both human and Verithian felt something they hadn't in centuries, the fragile, growing warmth of hope. Days passed since the Unity Ball, but Eli couldn't stop thinking about Virel, the memory of her hand in his, the warmth he felt despite her cold touch, and the way her red eyes had looked at him as if he truly mattered. All of it stayed with him. Even among humans, he felt out of place, but now, he carried a strange sense of belonging wherever he went, tied to her memory. He found her again one evening. The city's twin moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the streets and towers. She appeared at the edge of a quiet plaza, her long silver hair flowing, her red eyes fixed on him immediately. The crowd gave them space, whispers following, but no one dared approach. I thought you might come, she said softly. Her voice, calm and melodic, carried a faint sadness. I've been thinking about our dance. About you. Eli stepped closer, heart pounding. I think about you too, he admitted, unsure why he said it aloud. Every time I try to do something normal, I see your face, and I want to understand you. She studied him for a moment, as though weighing his words, measuring his heart. Understanding is rare, she whispered. Humans see only what they are told. They fear my kind, my world, but you see beyond it. Eli shook his head. I don't think I'm brave. I think I'm lonely too. I know what it feels like to be invisible. And I couldn't ignore you. Her lips curved faintly in the first genuine smile he had seen. Then perhaps human? We are similar in ways neither of us expected. She led him to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. There, under the soft glow of the moons, she began to speak, her voice low and filled with history. She told him of her people, the Verithians, how they had survived for centuries on worlds without sunlight, on stars that barely shone. They did not feed on blood, as the legend said, but on essence, the quiet energy of life itself. Without it, they withered. With it, they thrived. But this need, she explained, made her kind feared. Every touch, every interaction with other species was weighed with suspicion, mistrust, and danger. Eli listened, mesmerized, and for a long moment, neither spoke. He didn't feel fear, only awe and a growing connection. You're not what they say, he finally whispered. You're human in your way. You feel, you want. You're lonely too. Virel's red eyes softened. Lonely, and yes. For centuries I've walked among stars, among people, but never truly connected, until you. Eli felt a lump in his throat. Then maybe that's enough. Maybe you don't need to be feared if someone chooses to see you differently. Her gaze lingered on him, intense yet tender. You give me something I have not had in a long time. Trust, comfort, life. Eli's hand hovered near hers, uncertain. She leaned slightly closer, just enough for him to sense the faint pulse of energy within her. A quiet, steady rhythm that was not threatening, but alive. You don't have to be afraid, she whispered. You may touch me. You may stay. With trembling fingers, Eli took her hand. The moment their skin met, a subtle warmth flowed into him, not just from touch but from essence. A gift, fragile but real. He felt her centuries of solitude, her longing, and her strength intertwining with his own human heart. You gave me warmth, she said softly, almost a confession, and in return I give you a piece of myself. My essence. My trust. Eli swallowed hard, emotions overwhelming him. For the first time he understood something beyond legends and fear. Connection was stronger than danger. Love, or the beginning of it, was stronger than prejudice. And in that quiet moment, human and Verithian stood side by side, two lonely souls sharing a fragile, powerful bond. For Eli, the galaxy had shifted. What had seemed vast, cold, and unwelcoming now held possibility, hope, and life. And Varel, for the first time in centuries, felt truly alive. Not because of her power, but because someone had chosen to see her for who she was. In the quiet night, under alien moons, two hearts, different, improbable, and yet perfectly aligned, found each other. The next Unity Ball arrived faster than Eli expected. The grand hall gleamed again under alien lights, and the music floated through the air like a river of sound. Beings from countless worlds laughed and danced, forming pairs with elegance and grace. But Eli's eyes searched the room for only one figure. Virel. He spotted her near the balcony, standing apart from the crowd. Her posture was perfect, her silver hair falling like a soft waterfall, but her expression was tense. Red eyes scanned the crowd, alert. The Verithians had warned her. She was not to approach any human again. The punishment for disobedience was severe, exile or worse. Eli's chest tightened. The thought of not being able to see her again, even for one dance, felt unbearable. He had come for her, not the grandeur or spectacle, not the whispered praises or curious stares, only her. As the music began, slow and haunting, Eli made his way through the crowd. He ignored the gasps and murmurs as beings noticed him moving directly toward her. The human, he dares, one whispered. He is reckless, another muttered. Varel saw him coming and hesitated. Her hand trembled slightly. The guards of her kind edged closer, ready to intervene. The room seemed to freeze as he reached her. Varel, he said softly, though firm enough to carry across the balcony. Will you dance with me? Her red eyes widened, a mixture of surprise, fear, and longing. Eli, if we dance, they will exile me, she said, voice trembling. If they see us, I don't care. He interrupted gently but firmly. I want this moment. Just this one song. Will you? Virel looked at him for what felt like eternity. There was power in him, in the quiet determination of his stance, in the bravery of his heart. She had spent centuries calculating risks, weighing trust, fearing betrayal. And yet, here he was, choosing her, seeing her, offering connection without hesitation. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. She held out her hand, this time without hesitation. Then we shall dance, she whispered. As they moved into the center of the hall, the crowd parted instinctively. Eyes widened, whispers started, but no one approached. The music rose, slow and resonant, and Virel guided him effortlessly. Her steps were precise, elegant, almost ethereal. Eli stumbled at first, but she adjusted with gentle patience. You are steady, she said softly, even as all eyes watch us. I'm not steady, Eli admitted. But with you, I feel right, like this is where I'm supposed to be. Their hands lingered, hearts beating together in a rhythm that the music seemed to follow. Every step was a statement, every turn a declaration of defiance against fear and prejudice. Around them, the hall seemed to blur, the stares and whispers fading into insignificance. You don't understand, she murmured, almost to herself. They will punish me, but I cannot resist this. Not again. Eli's eyes held hers. Then don't, he said firmly. This moment is ours. Even if the universe tries to tear us apart, this is ours. For a long moment they danced in silence. Two beings from worlds apart, united by something greater than fear, greater than rules, greater than centuries of isolation. Each movement, each glance carried a promise of trust, of hope, and of something far deeper than either had expected. By the time the song ended, silence enveloped the hall. The guards of her kind hesitated, unsure how to act. But Eli and Varel remained close, hands still intertwined. Neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. The bond between them was loud, undeniable, and more powerful than fear. In that moment, Eli realized that sometimes bravery was not about strength or power. Sometimes it was about choosing connection, choosing hope, even in the face of exile or danger. And Varel, for the first time in centuries, felt something she had thought impossible: the freedom to be seen, the courage to feel, and the warmth of being chosen. The hall remained silent after the music ended. All eyes were on them. Eli, the human who had dared, and Varel, the Varithian who had chosen to defy centuries of fear and expectation. But for Eli and Varel, the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Varel's red eyes glimmered faintly, soft with emotion. She took a slow breath, feeling the weight of centuries lift slightly, carried away by the warmth that Eli had given her. "Eli," she whispered, her voice almost a sigh. "I do not want to lose you." Eli shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. "You won't. You've given me a part of yourself, and I'll carry it wherever you go. That's enough for me." Her lips curved in a smile, bittersweet and tender. Then, with a courage born from centuries of isolation and pain, she stepped closer, bridging the space between them. She pressed her forehead to his, a small pulse of her essence passing into him. A gift, faint yet alive. Eli felt a warmth spread through him. Not just in his body, but in his chest, deep in his heart. It was a piece of her life, a fragment of her soul, something to hold on to even if the universe tried to separate them. The hall's whispers began again, but Eli no longer cared. They were loud, meaningless noise compared to the truth of the moment. Varel had chosen him and he had chosen her, not because of strength or beauty or fear, but because of something simpler, deeper, and far more powerful: understanding. You made me feel alive," she murmured, her red eyes soft with something close to tears. "Alive in a way I have not felt in centuries." Eli took her hand again, holding it firmly. "And you made me feel seen, not as a mechanic, not as a human from a small world, but as someone who matters. That's more than I ever imagined." For a long moment they stood in quiet, letting the words sink in. No music, no applause, no alien scrutiny mattered. There was only this fragile, extraordinary connection between a human and a Varithian, and in that, both of them discovered something neither had dared hope for: trust. Then slowly the music began again, not orchestrated by the hall, but the rhythm of the stars themselves, or so it seemed. Eli smiled, a gentle curve of his lips. "One more dance?" he asked softly, his heart steady despite the chaos around them. Varel nodded, a faint laugh escaping her lips, delicate and broken, yet filled with joy. "One last dance," she whispered. They moved together once more, not with perfection, but with honesty. Every step spoke of centuries of loneliness, every glance of unspoken longing, every touch of quiet trust. Around them, the crowd watched, mesmerized and silent, witnessing something rare and beautiful, a bridge between worlds, between fear and hope, between human and alien. As the dance reached its gentle end, Varel leaned close, pressing her hand to Eli's chest, feeling the rapid beat of his human heart. "No matter what the universe says," she whispered, "I will carry you with me." "And I'll carry you with me," Eli replied. "Always." For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. Stars above reflected in her silver hair, the twin moons casting their glow over the hall. And in that quiet cosmic embrace, they existed solely for each other. The legend of the feared Varithian and the small human faded, replaced by a simple truth: connection, trust, and the courage to choose one another could overcome even centuries of fear. When they finally parted, it was not with sorrow, but with certainty. Each carried the other's essence, a bond unbroken by distance or danger. Eli had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons, numbers, or fame, but in its capacity to see, to trust, and to give warmth to those lost in darkness. And Varel, for the first time in countless years, had found life not just in essence, but in the fragile, extraordinary, and undeniable gift of being chosen. The galaxy would remember that night, not for the grandeur, not for the power, not for the politics or fear, but for the human and the Varethian who danced together, teaching every watcher a simple, eternal truth. Sometimes, the smallest choices, an offered hand, a trusted heart, a shared dance can change the universe.